Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I am Mark Rogue Wave Hoffmeyer.
God damn it. I am Jay, also Rogue Wave Fluids. Couldn't think of anything else. Took a gamble, didn't pay off. Oh well. Welcome you aboard Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. On this show, we've been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy, scene by scene, now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. As films directed by Rennie Harlin, featuring sharks or aquatic action, and this is very much in the aquatic action. As we're talking about Poseidon, it's the much long-awaited Poseidon episode. It's a new year, so we're talking about a film that has a New Year's Eve in it. Poseidon. What is Poseidon? Well, it's a remake of the Poseidon Adventure, which we've covered on this show already. The 1972 film. This is the 2006 remake, directed by Wolfgang Petersen, the third in his water-based trilogy of Das Boot, The Perfect Storm, and now Poseidon. Maybe we'll cover the other two at some point. Probably not.
Times on Boats trilogy. Or ships.
Those other two are quite serious films, which isn't generally our bread and butter here. But maybe they're on the list. They're on the long list.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to cover Perfect Storm.
No.
Just a lot of fishing, ice.
Yeah.
And like, hey, let's get more fish, and then they die.
It's a good cast. I've visited the site where they set off from, and there's a plaque. And I took a picture of it, and on Facebook I tagged the names of the actors rather than the cast. That's how, which is sacrilegious, and it's poor taste, and I regret doing it. I was like 15, I don't know. Either way, this stars...
That's what you do when you're 15.
You do stupid stuff on Facebook.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell, Josh Lucas, Richard Dreyfuss, our fourth Richard Dreyfuss film, after Jaws, Piranha 3D, and recently Hello Down There, a young Richard Dreyfuss singing underwater in Hello Down There. Not singing, miming underwater. Emmy Rossum, Jacinda Barrett, Mike Vogel, Mia Maestro, Jimmy Bennett, Bergie, and of course the great Andre Braugher, R.I.P. in this film, reprising Leslie Nielsen's role. Andre Braugher taking that. There's a ship, it's the Poseidon, it gets hit by a wave and turned upside down, and hilarity ensues. So, Mark, on this show, we recently talked about Scott Adkins on Legend of Hercules. We're now talking about your other favourite actor, Kurt Russell. Finally get to talk about a Kurty-Russ film on this show.
Kurty-Russ. Kurty-Russ. I'm so glad you remember that. Also, Joshy Liu. This is our second Joshy Lucas movie.
It is indeed our second Josh Lucas film.
Yeah.
A guy who I'm putting up there with Rob Marshall as a nemesis of the podcast.
Now, I want to say something. Before I forget, I always forget things during these episodes because I just get too into the conversation. Like we don't structure it too much, so most of my notes I just go where the conversation goes. But I got to get these out of here. All right, so Movies, Films, and Flicks. Our first episode ever was about Kurt Russell's sleeveless shirts. I've written about him as Elvis. I cover a Kurt Russell movie every 25th episode on Movies, Films, and Flicks. I love his filmography. I got to be on set with him once. Didn't say anything because you got to be professional. But I was like, holy moly, That's Jack Burton. I wrote about Jack Burton being the greatest. He's the greatest, my favorite action hero of all time. Think he's incredible. Jay loves Big Trouble in Little China. We won't go there.
But it's the thing we disagree about the most.
Yeah, we had an episode where it was just war. It was DJ Valentine, friend of the pod, you, me, and someone else, and it was just chaos. Yeah, you dug your heels in the ground and your head and your entire body. We couldn't even see you.
3 or 4 massive Big Trouble in Little China fans. And me, just be like, I don't get. You can all like this film, I just don't get it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You were so dug in, we didn't even see you. Like you were.
I've seen it 3 times. Each time I've tried to like it, I just haven't. It's just not for me. I'm sorry.
Like that movie, The Core. Like you went further into the core than they did.
Love The Core.
Like you dug so deep. But I want to share my favorite water moments with Kurt Russell before we jump into Poseidon. Right, the $160 million budgeted Poseidon.
God.
With John Seal, Mad Max Fury Roads. He also did Perfect Storm. John Seal is a cinematographer. And John Fraser, who is one of the greatest special effects artists of all time, Oscar nominated. He's been nominated for, I think, 15 Academy Awards. He won for Spider-Man 2. He did Twister. I mean, he's one of the greatest special effects coordinators of all times. And I got to see him work on
this.
And I got to see him work on Goosebumps. So
nice.
That was awesome. I'm not mentioning movies. I just love movies. I worked on them, and it was cool seeing him on there.
Well, this is a movie podcast. You worked on movies. We want to hear about it. So don't even think about apologizing for. Oh yeah, I worked on this film with Kurt Russell. Tell us. We want to know.
No, thank you for that. I needed that. And he's also did Waterworld. I mean, this guy has done everything. He's just, even Child's Play 3, Basic Instinct. Like the guy is just His resume is insane. They dropped 90,000 pounds of water at one point in this movie. They had 5 stages rotating and built
twice.
like they were like, hey, what's shooting continuity? And they just went through, okay, here, and they had to tear things down every stage. I mean, this is 160 minutes. They went into it without a script. Kurt Russell was saying, like, this is nuts. But going back to Kurt Russell water moments, I dug deep.
I couldn't tell they went into it without a script. Please carry on.
It's like this movie. Listen, it's 90 minutes without credits, so that's kind of nice. Yeah. Like, it's in and out. It's fast.
It looks great. The effects are great.
Dude, yeah. They're like special effects. Great. No, yeah, the script is garbage.
Missing.
Human garbage. But everything kind of sea life garbage. Garbage that comes from a boat. Sure. Any type of garbage, Jay.
Ballast.
Ballast. So, but it looks great, and it has Kurt Russell in the water. And my main memory from watching this in 2006 was just being annoyed because Kurty-Russ dies in it. And I was like, this sucks. Like, I was like, you can't kill Kurt Russell. Like, I remember saying that. I'm like, this blows. But then, Bone Tomahawk.
Kills Kurt Russell.
Yeah, Bone Tomahawk, Death Proof. Like, he's been getting wiped out lately. But it Hateful Eight. So yeah, I mean, he's been meeting his demise quite frequently lately. But in 2006, I was like, this is crap. So I dug deep and I found my 5 favorite Kurty-Russ water moments. Do you want to hear them?
Sure.
Okay, so The Thing and Miracle, they play hockey on ice, and The Thing's all snow. But I'm going to take those out of there because, I mean, even if you fall into a snow pile, you're surrounded essentially by frozen water crystals, H2O. It's liquid, but it's frozen, so I don't count it. Oh, sure. If you fall into it, there's a chance you can walk out with your clothes not being 100% damp.
It'd be like if you're on the moon and the Earth smashes into you. Like, technically you're hit by 70% water. I was like, yeah, okay. You're still hit by a planet.
Yeah. That's a good point. Actually, I would love for that to happen, Jay. Like, is the Earth hurtling towards me and it's the ocean part? Like, maybe I could survive this.
I'm not going to test that theory.
And then, like, Hateful Eight, he's also surrounded by snow. It's going to sound like sacrilege. I'm not including Overboard. I know there's water scenes in Breakdown. I know Deepwater Horizon is all about water. There's Backdraft. He shoots water at fire.
I was expecting Backdraft. Okay.
So this is it, though. So I'm going to go number 5, Tombstone. When he's walking across the river going, no! Yep, he's just yelling no, and he's like 8 feet away from people just slaughtering them. Number 4 is in Captain Ron. So he's on the boat, Ron, and he's with Martin Short, and there's this lady waving, and Martin Short's like, nah, she's waving at me. Like, I don't think she's waving at you, Ron. And then Ron goes, hey, Clarice, babe, who you waving at? And then she looks at him, and she's like, yeah, see? He's like, every time I'm up this way, she wants my manhood. And then he jumps in the water and carries her away. But I'm giving him credit for this because I love how he goes, hey, Clarice, babe, who you waving at? Like, it's just hilarious, Captain Ron with an eye patch. 3, there's a scene in Big Trouble in Little China when, he's supposed to be the hero of the movie, but Jack Burton's a complete dip crap. I don't want to swear, so you have to cut it out. So I just made an even grosser word, a dip crap.
A dip crap.
That sounds worse than the other one. So in Big Trouble in Little China, he's like, would you stop rubbing your body against mine? Because I can't concentrate when you do that. So when he's in the tunnel with Gracie and they're covered in water and trying to get out. But I just think it's hilarious because he's supposed to be this ultra buff, ultra macho hero. But having Gracie next to him, he just can't focus because he's such an idiot. And it's such a funny line. He just takes the piss out of himself so brilliantly. So that's my number 2. My number 3. My number 2 is a tie, and it's because it's 2 rain fights. So there's a rain fight in Tango and Cash, and there's a rain fight in Soldier. But if I had to give one the better, like put one ahead, I would put the one in Soldier because he fights Jason Scott Lee, and that's a great rain fight. And Kurt Russell got jacked for that movie. Huge. It's a good fight. Number 1, the greatest moment in the history of 1996 cinema.
Escape from LA.
Escape from LA when he's surfing with Pipeline. Sure. Not the scene when he's in the submarine and the shark goes by, but the surfing scene. And then there's a beautiful scene. Steve Buscemi's just driving, And there's a great gif of Steve Buscemi reacting to Kurt Russell flying towards him on a surfboard. But yeah, so Kurt Russell rides a wave with a Fonda, and he catches Steve Buscemi's convertible, and he just jumps on it while surfing a wave. But there's a scene where he just high fives Fonda while they're surfing, and it's like, if anyone takes this movie serious,
It's
like if
cinema.
you watch this movie and you go, that surfing scene is so stupid, like it is stupid. And I think they know that. Like, that's the tone of the movie. So that's my number one scene, the surfing scene with Kurt Russell.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, you mentioned you were going to do your top 5 water Russell scenes. I was like, should I do this? I was like, no, I should. There's no point. Like, you're going to have the definitive list. I couldn't even think of 5. So I haven't seen. I've never seen Captain Ron. I will cover it on this show one day. It's eligible.
We should do it.
Point. Well, it's on the list.
Oh, there's storms and there's gorillas with a U. I love that movie. He warms Martin Short. He's like, there's gorillas on these islands, boss. He's like, gorillas? That's so stupid. What do you mean gorillas? There's no apes on this island. But then he learns it's gorillas with a U. Cinema.
Yes, it's cinema. But not a film that did not appear on your list was, of course, Poseidon, which I'm not surprised. We
sets are huge.
Sets are huge. Very impressively made film. But I've talked about the original on here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like the 70s version? Are you a fan?
Yeah, a lot better than this one.
Yeah. So, because Todd joined me for those ones, for that and
the sequel,
the Michael Caine sequel.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you got Gene Hackman. Like, you just got Gene Hackman being over the top, and just a wonderful cast and kind of tongue in cheek. This one's just 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that first one's 117 minutes.
Yeah,
and it's a very similar plot, but they allow time for the character. Yeah. So whereas here,
and they're traveling. We know why they're traveling.
Yeah, like here, like Richard Dreyfuss just kind of tags along.
Yeah,
like Josh Lucas trying to escape, fine. Kurt Russell trying to get to his daughter, and get her to safety. Everyone, like Free Rodriguez gets paid.
He dies first. And then Mia Maestro dies, and you're like, guys.
And
then Andre Braugher dies, guys.
Richard Dreyfuss always there when the minorities die.
Yeah.
He kills Free Rodriguez. And
he does. Just let him go.
He tries to kick him in the face. It's so.
And everyone's like, Josh Lucas is like, you did what you could. You gave us a chance. It's like, wow.
Okay, Josh Lucas may be the least likable action hero in this film I've ever seen. His character is so angry all the time. I get it. He's a professional gambler who used to be in the Navy. That's his character. Mm-hmm. And they're in a situation, both turned upside down. He's trying to get out, and he accidentally just kind of has this ragtag team joining along with him, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like anyone. And every decision he makes is just kind of self-serving. And he tries to save the kid at the end, I guess, but he's so angry the whole time.
Yeah.
When he's forcing, I forget which lady it is, like into the vent to go and push Richard Dreyfuss up.
He picks her up and shoves her in there.
He's so angry. Just, I get it. It's a tense situation, but chill out, man.
You know what's interesting about Josh Lucas is I first learned about him with Session 9, and then he was in Sweet Home Alabama, and he was perfect in Sweet Home Alabama as like an angry ex. But then they're like, put him in Stealth, put him in Poseidon. It's like, no, put him in Undertow, put him in
Has he ever
Yellowstone.
played a nice guy? Has he ever played a guy you're like, hey, I like this guy? Because I was watching the behind the scenes for Poseidon, and he's talking about a lot of the actors did as many of their stunts as they could. And so there's a scene where he's got to swim under fire, and that wasn't a scene that was in the film. He decided, I think if there's room on fire, I want to swim under it. And the filmmakers were like, no, that's very dangerous. And so he says in the documentary, like, I went home and I swam around in my pool I kept on swimming around in my pool, and I already hate him because he has a pool. And I kept on trying to do it and persuading them, and eventually I wore him down. And I just keep thinking from the perspective of the filmmakers, how much they must have hated him and having to do that. It's like he's adding in this terrible scene, this scene where they got to swim under the fire. It's so dangerous. The extra insurance is going to cost to have their lead actor swim in water that's on fire. And just everything around that, just because he wanted to swim under fire. Do that on your own time. Make a fire and go swim under it.
All right, so I'm looking, right, Stolen, not a good guy. Hulk, not a good guy. And Lincoln Lawyer, he's the posing lawyer, not popular. Forever Purge, he was a turd. Stealth, he was cocky. For Ford vs. Ferrari, he's like the biggest jerk in the history of the planet.
Sure, yeah.
The Black Demon, he's that dad.
He's the hero, but you're not rooting for him.
He's actually very charming in Sweet Home Alabama. American Psycho, they used him well because that's just a good movie. I know a lot of people misinterpret it, but he's good in that. Hulk, no, he's a villain in Hulk.
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
American Psycho's great. I don't remember him in it. It's been a long time, and I've never seen Sweet Home Alabama. He's well cast when you're not supposed to like him, and I feel like that's not the case in Poseidon. Like he's the hero.
Yeah, and then they gave him hero moments, but those don't really ring true when he dives into the water with the hose. Listen, this movie's admirable because it's 90 minutes, but yeah, there's nothing like he's just that really bad banter in the beginning when he's talking to the mom, and it's.
He has two meet cutes with two different women in like the first scene of the film.
Yeah. On Glory Road, he's a good coach. I know that. Like he's like a good guy coach.
I guess we have the poker scene where Josh Lucas not the biggest arsehole in the film because Kevin Dillon's in the film.
Oh, so, man, he's so bad.
You always have him to compare against, and he's the worst character ever put into film.
Lucky Larry is horrifying.
No one is happy he's alive. Everyone's happy when he dies.
Even in 2006, that character was aggressive.
You've got Kurt Russell's character, who's like a former mayor of New York, former firefighter, and like Lucky Larry is like, if I remember rightly, you couldn't even save your wife. Or like, keep your wife because his wife left. Like, this is a guy trying to help you and save you, and you're just making fun of him for his wife leaving him. When he comes back to when like he's alive, he like survives the flip. He even comes out of that an arsehole, like grabbing Emmy Rossum's leg to scare the crap out of her.
Yeah, like you gotta you gotta push. You not pull like. Oh my god!
Any of you
and then
skirts ever changed a tire? Is the
rods? Yeah. And he slaps the bartender's butt.
Yep. Everything. He survives too long, and he doesn't survive that long.
He has the worst exposition dump in the history of the so he takes a swig of whiskey, and Josh Lucas very aggressively goes, "Hey man, take it easy," like very Josh Lucas-y.
Yep.
So and then the guy just goes off on Kurt Russell.
Yeah. But then he dies. He dies hard. He has a Mindhunter level death of an engine block falling on him, oil and explosion.
Who's shooting at me? Yeah.
So
I know we're hating on Joshy Lucas, but there are moments when he and Kurt Russell are together that they have some form of chemistry in this movie. There's a couple moments where they could have worked in a movie that maybe had a finished script.
Sure. Because they're two alphas kind of butting heads, trying to they both have the same goal of getting out, but they don't always agree which way to go. But
then they agree.
Yeah, they eventually agree. But then there's one bit where Connor and Maggie, Jacinta Barrett and Jimmy Bennett are missing, and so Josh Lucas goes to save them, and Kurt Russell goes to get his daughter out, and so that's when they split. And there's not any real argument or tense moment there. I feel like they could have been in a better scene. We gotta go and save these people. I'm gonna save my daughter. That kind of thing. But we don't. But even then, that's kind of rote dialogue that we don't need. What I just said would be terrible.
I think there was no time for a script in this movie.
Yeah.
Because they said they just had to do it, and then they had to shoot it. And so I think there's a scene where they had 100,000 gallons of water ready to splash on everybody in a gigantic soundstage in Hollywood. Like when you get to that point, you're like, I think if I made this movie, Jay, I'd be like, is everything strapped down? Like, are these Like, I'm like, so there's scenes when they were swimming in this movie and they had special shoes that could drain water so the people didn't get weighed down. Like that's the stuff they thought about in this. There was 75. Josh Lucas had 75
different shirts.
Shirts.
Yeah, that's all the same thing. And they had 40 different tops for Emmy Rossum.
Yeah. And they had 1,200 people on set, 400 extras. They had all the special effects. They wanted to outstorm the perfect storm, out Titanic.
Yeah.
They had the most water ever, and they kept having to tear down and rebuild sets. So like when you get to this point, when you get to this in a movie with this budget and you're moving this fast, the script is second. I know that's insane, but there's way too many moving parts.
You can see them like watching Titanic going, oh, this is kind of a tired story. We don't need to worry about the script for this one. And so trying to out Titanic the Titanic is just trying to make a bigger, more impressive spectacle. But Titanic, yes, it has a fairly traditional script. It's a story we've seen before.
That's what works though. That's why Cameron's brilliant.
It's classic. There's like setups and payoffs and like the juxtaposition of the different classes on the ship, and they spend time so you care about these. Like the second half of Titanic is the entirety of Poseidon. It's trying to, but it's missing that first half of setting up the characters. And even then, that's an insult to Titanic because the second half of Titanic is so much better than the entirety of Poseidon.
And listen, they had 25 minutes added on to the beginning of this, and they got rid of it. Yeah, but you know what though? I don't want it. If it would have been
if this is the result.
Yeah, exactly. If that 25 minutes was the same as this 90 minutes, I don't want that.
Yeah. If you're setting up these characters, no, thank you.
Because
we don't. No.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about, Jay? Like, I know a lot of movies like Perfect Storm, Day After Tomorrow. You create likable characters, and when the storm hits the fan, you care as they die. Yeah. But if the movie is 90 minutes and the storm hits in the first 5-10 minutes, we don't need to know. I don't need to know that Emmy Rossum and her boyfriend are cuddling and Kurt Russell is a jealous dad. Like, I don't need to know that he's a gambling guy. You just put him in the room, have it happen, and then you learn as they go, like as they move throughout. Does that make sense? Like
it does.
Yeah. You don't just let the storm hit and then learn. Like you don't. It was just kind of clumsy in the beginning, and then yeah. So like, this movie could have been 80 minutes, 70 minutes.
I mean, I am like, if you think about some of the classic disaster films, some of them have quite bloated time frames.
Yeah.
Like the Towering Inferno is like 240, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I love the Towering Inferno. Like, I'm always concerned when like you get a big ensemble disaster film and it's relatively short. I love Daylight. Daylight's just shy of 2 hours. Like, that's great. It's more time for the characters. Exactly. Twister as well. Deep Blue Sea is shorter, but has less set pieces. So there's no, they haven't got to dedicate 50 minutes to the boat turning over. The shark attacks in Deep Blue Sea, relatively quick. So there's more time for character and exploration. And like the opening shot of this is Josh Lucas running around the ship, which in that behind the scenes thing was regarded as like one of the most impressive technical shots in all of history, because they really like filmed him running around that location, but the entire ship is CGI. So they could have just filmed him in little pieces and pieced it all together. But also they're setting up. That's the kind of thing where like, oh, they're going to introduce us to all these locations we'll see later on in the film, but they don't because they're all on the outside of the ship. So as soon as it goes upside down, we never see them again. That's a fundamental like a mistake. Like you should be like, he's jogging through the entire route they're going to escape through is what should have been happening, like the ballroom and then into the engine rooms and the ballast. Like, but this setting that you're never going to see again.
Or open with Freddie Rodriguez walking through the entire ship.
Yeah, or like all of the characters we're going to see. This could have been that character setup is just one long shot of Freddie Rodriguez in the kitchen. He's just spoken to the. Like, you're introduced to him as him being like a good guy. I feel like when Richard Dreyfuss kills him, it turns out like the Mia Maestro's character. Yeah, it's because that he's smuggled Mia Maestro on board as passage. He's allowing her to bunk with him, air quotes. And I was like, well, this feels very wrong.
And he kisses her too when she comes in the kitchen.
Yeah. I initially, yeah. So I don't. I'm like for any character to be kicked in the face to die. Like yes, Kevin Dillon first, but then maybe Freddy Rodriguez. I don't know.
And he gets a double death too. He lands on spikes, then crushed.
He gets the Gaston.
Yeah.
He lands on the spikes.
Like, did he annoy Wolfgang Petersen on this? And yeah, this is just what. Have you watched Das Boot and
I
watched?
have. I saw it. It was a few years ago at this point. But I have seen Das Boot and I've seen Perfect Storm many times because it's always on TV here.
Always on.
Always on TV.
But like, watching Perfect Storm, I mean, you have what, John C. Reilly, George Clooney,
William Fichtner.
Really, like, just the entire cast is likable, and you have good actors back on shore as well.
The cast of Perfect Storm is stacked. It's ridiculous.
And you like them, and they go too far, but they're having the perfect catch, and then they get stuck in the perfect storm, and you feel for them. And then you have, the all-time like claustrophobic epic, what Das Boot, like, just it's just so practical and claustrophobic. And Wolfgang Petersen was talking about how he had a great quote. You sit on the shore and you're 15 and you have a lot of time to think and a lot of things to think about. And there's a long, endless horizon with a lot of space where your thoughts can go. And the colors on the sea, it all is a very soothing, beautiful, calm tranquility sometimes. It's just wonderful. I love that. And sometimes a turn when the clouds are coming and the sea turns into a monster and it crashes against the shore. And it had this unbelievable force of destruction. We're reminded again by the tsunami of what it can do. It's the biggest force in nature with the most destructive, frightening chaos. We all know what water can do. So it's cool. Like, the ocean can be calm, but it can be scary. So there's a beauty and it's frightening, and you should feel that way about it. And like, just the claustrophobia of that movie was perfect. But then this one, I think he just had a bunch of cash stored up from some big hits he made, and the end result is this movie, Poseidon.
Yeah, and like this would be the last film Peterson would make for a decade. Like this kind of,
you go to director jail for this.
He was supposed to do Ender's Game, but he turned it down. And then he ended up doing, what did he end up doing? A film back in Germany in 2016. And then that was his last film because he passed away last year. So this is kind of like the Legend of Extraordinary Gentlemen kind of thing, where like this stalled careers and evicted people from filmmaking. Because it made $81 million, but it cost 160 and then another like 80 for marketing. So this is a flop. Like it cost like $240 million in total, and it's impressive scale wise, but it's not. I wouldn't say it costs. It looks like it cost that much. It's those 400 extras with 3 costumes each. Like it's the 75 costumes for George Lucas. They went a little bit too far.
How about a script?
Yeah,
it's I admire that, but 1,200 people on set all getting paid. But like you think about what Das Boot what 81?
I think so.
Yeah, 81, and then you have I don't know, In the Line of Fire. I remember watching that back in the day, probably around 93, and just loving the dynamic of it and the wooden gun and then like Outbreak, I think, was really claustrophobic, and I remember it really stuck in my memory. Like even Enemy Mine I enjoy, but maybe like Air Force One, that one's lovely. Like that's he hates trapping people and things and then just like causing action. But like Neverending Story, that wrecked my youth. Like he worked on such a good smaller scale budget, but I remember watching Troy in 2004 and just going, something's missing. Like something didn't, like, because all the press was about Brad Pitt, and rightfully so. I mean, he got jacked and like he looks great in the movie. I think Eric Bana is good in it, but something's missing in that movie. And
there are people that love it. Heather Baxter-Wolf loves Troy. So it has its fans, but I've seen it once and I'm good.
Yeah,
I don't need to.
Yeah, I've watched it twice because I had to analyze Brad Pitt's eating.
Sure.
In it, as one does. But yeah, I mean, just Troy was too. I don't know. It just felt off. And then when I sat in Poseidon Adventure, it just felt off. Like I wonder if he has made some visceral movies. Like Neverending Story and like a few other, like they are straight up classics. Like he's good. So we know he's a good director. I just think the budget's got to wait from him after Perfect Storm was so gigantic.
So there's a quote from Roger Ebert about Poseidon, which we don't really quote critics on here, but Petersen's heart isn't in it. He is too wise a director to think this is first-rate material, and too good a director to turn it into enjoyable trash. So that's like he's down the middle. He's making a film, but he's not making something that's fun. He's not making something that's good. It's just kind of serviceable. Is how I read that.
Wow.
It's damning. Like you made a film. That's all we can say.
Like, but that's true though. Like, it was like Hollow Man with Paul Verhoeven. Verhoeven movies are great because they're Paul Verhoeven movies.
Yeah.
Starship Troopers can work for people watching it with like a lizard brain, but it also can work for cinephiles. I mean, RoboCop. Like this guy makes very good, satiric, violent, good movies. And then he made Hollow Man, and even Verhoeven said he did it for a paycheck, and he wasn't in it. But you can feel it. Like you can feel that this isn't a Wolfgang Petersen. And he said the reason he did this one, when he said that the first Poseidon adventure, he's like, you kind of watch it and you kind of laugh at it. So he's like, I don't want people to smile when this one goes over. So he's like, I used all the tools so we can make it frightening and realistic and get the idea what disaster it is. And he's like, there are not movie stars on the screen in terms of movie stars. They are more like Kurt and Josh, and all the other people are more like relatable people who could be on a cruise ship. That's what I wanted. Realistic, very hard edge, scary like hell, which is what disaster is. And to see how people react, and of course invite you as an audience to say how you would react. But it's not like a Romero zombie film where you're actually in there with them planning how you would protect the mall or the house. Like this isn't that. This isn't overly realistic, and the characters aren't overly relatable.
Yeah. Relatable people like Richard Dreyfuss' character ordering a $5,000 bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Relatable.
Freddie Rodriguez, right? Or Mia Maestro, like you kill off I do like Mike Vogel in this and Emmy Rossum because there's that good line where she's like, you didn't do swim, you weren't on your swim team. Like there's tiny moments that I feel like work, but Kurt Russell said on set they were just trying to figure out the script every day and he hated it. So he was like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, and he's not relatable. He's got a 2-story suite on a cruise.
Yeah,
that's the most expensive room in the world.
Yeah, so I don't really know what he was talking about here. And what Roger Ebert said was perfect, and I'm glad you brought that up. Like he's too good to make trash, because we've had some fun with movies that are just like campy, fun trash.
We love Shark in Venice.
Yeah,
so much.
And he can't do that. But yeah, this one there's not much passion there, I think. And also too, it's like, well, I guess I should complete my trilogy. Like if you're gonna make a movie, make it organically. Do it because you have the drive to make that happen, and you just don't feel that here. But it looks great.
Yeah, so, like the stunt work is fantastic. The effects work is fantastic. The sets we've mentioned, like just watching them testing the flooding sequences in the behind the scenes stuff is impressive. Like the thought that went into it.
Well, someone came to me and Mark, I want to make a 90-minute movie about a cruise ship flipped upside down, and just people going from it exploding in a race against time to get out. I would say no, because I don't want to film a movie in water tanks, but I'm like, I love the idea. So like, if I'm a studio exec, I'm not greenlighting this because it's wildly expensive. But I like, but you know what though, Jay? Like the cool thing about this movie is they move. Like, let's go, let's do this, let's do that. Like, this should be exciting, and this should have, this should have. You have Kurt Russell. Like, you should have.
I think they move too fast. I think we've talked about it before. You get peril fatigue. It's constant. Things going wrong again. Move. Let's go. And no, like, let's stop and take a minute. Like, let's talk. It's like think this through. It's like no, we've got to this guy in the face and get out, and then we'll move on. And the guy who just kicked him in the face, who just made friends with him, didn't show any remorse. He's just Richard Dreyfuss just off and go, and let's move. He's not like take a minute to think about what he just did.
and you think it's going to be an issue with Mia Maestro, but she's like, nah, man, like that dude I just met.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, it's cool. You don't care about him. Whatever, kick him in
like,
the face. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, if that had been like her brother or something, then that would like had a different relationship. That we would have had just a different chemistry, different take on the whole thing. Like, take out the kiss, take out the he's bunking with me kind of thing. Just like if I smuggled my sister on board to get her into the country or something.
Yeah.
Then it would have been a different dynamic.
Everyone looks at each other and goes, whoa, what are the odds? Like, whoops. Like, Kevin Dillon didn't have to be a D-head. Like, he didn't have to be that guy. Sometimes, like, I know why people make horror movies about kids having internal struggles and learning to overcome it. But a lot of times they make these movies where, like a couple's fighting and they're about to get a divorce, but then they get stalked by mass people and they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't get a divorce. Like, I don't like that. Like, I just want a couple who loves each other to deal with a horrifying threat. Like, I know you have to overcome things, but like, I don't think in times you need people that are like, people cheered when Dylan died, but I don't think that's what Wolfgang wanted. He seemed, I want to make it more real, more visceral. Like when Kevin Dillon died, everyone went, yeah, good. This guy sucks. So it's like he should have been likable. Like, why not make a group of people escaping? You can have alphas, but I don't know. When it's a movie this fast, you don't need the threat's enough. You don't need jerks, if that makes sense.
I would say you brought up Dawn of the Dead earlier, the remake. Ty Burrell's character in the Dawn of the Dead remake is very much the Kevin Dillon of that film, where he's just an asshole throughout, eventually dies, but he's around for longer, and you get more. He's like a fun jerk.
Yeah,
and, like he's still a jerk. He's still like the character says, "I'm going to kill you later," and they do. But he's around longer. You spend more time, more fun. Kevin Dillon has like 2 or 3 scenes where he's just the worst and then dies.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to temper that jerkiness. And like Ty Burrell is inherently likable. Kevin Dillon maybe less so. So there's that working against it as well.
Ty is hilarious in that movie. That's Zack Snyder's best movie, man. Like
Agreed.
I watched that in a packed theater in Houston, Texas, and the eruption that people had, and the music, and the Johnny Cash, and the Have a Nice Day, and what Richard Cheese, like it's, and just that is a good remake, man. Yeah, he's like, I'm dropping all this consumeristic crap, and I'm just gonna give you like visceral thrills. Yeah, but you're right. Why even bring in a jerk if he's only there for 2 scenes? And he doesn't even try to sabotage anything.
He doesn't advance the plot at all. He's just there to. I generally think he's there to make Josh Lucas's character seem less bad. Like I think they wrote as what they had a script. Like, oh, this guy's come off terrible. Let's put in somebody worse. And I'm still annoyed that they leave Andre Braugher behind. I get it, he's the captain, he's looking after the rest of them, but he's like the most watchable person in the cast. After Kurty Russell, of course.
And nothing against Jacinda Barrett and Emma Rossum, they're fine, but in 06, like I think they both have put in good work, but they were both relatively new, and so you don't have that chemistry there. And Mike Vogel, I've liked him in movies. He had been acting for a while when he jumped into this film, but like there's still a little bit of a chemistry vacuum there. And Kurt Russell's typically like the most likable dude. Dreyfuss pops, but I don't know. I'm telling you, man. I bet you on set they're just like, how do we survive? Like how do we get from day to day? I don't think they were thinking about their characters. I think each day they were just kind of thinking, okay, what do we write that works? So I think when you go into something without a script, you can't have that. Like, look at Edgar Wright, man. Like, he rehearses so hardcore, has a finished script. So when they go into shooting, the characters have personalities and they are lived in because it's been workshopped. They didn't do that with this. So I see what I think is they weren't thinking about character and they were just thinking about more how to get through the day and their fat ass paychecks that they got from this. Because I know Richard Dreyfuss paid for his son's college education with this movie. So it's that's my view of what this movie was on set, I would say.
I think that's fair. And like I remember Fergie being all over the marketing.
Yeah, all over.
We've got Fergie in it for 2.5 minutes. You'll never see her again.
And I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. So she starts dancing, and she keeps going, but she's like, keep moving and moving and moving and moving it, keep moving and moving, and you're just like, is this more to this song? Like it's
It's a Black Eyed Peas song. No,
yeah,
their songs have very little to them.
Keep moving and move, but this one wasn't even as good as like tonight's gonna be a good night or let's get it started.
That's the worst song ever made, so I disagree.
Which one?
Tonight's Gonna Be a Good Night, I think, is the worst song in all of history.
Oh man, I was a bouncer when that song played every night.
It is a 4-minute long chorus.
Turn out the light. No one knows how to dance to it, Jay.
There is no way to.
I
don't know how to dance to anything. I don't know the Macarena, so I'm the last person to talk to about dancing. But it's
I would watch people in the bar and they would make noble attempts at it, but it's just a jump around song. But then she does this thing. Yeah. I like they have like Let's Get It Started, which was a horrible. Do you know what they had to change that from?
Yes, I do.
Jeez Louise. But so there's this line though where she's like, we're gonna feel the light, we're gonna go out tonight, work up your appetite. And that's 3 rhymes in 3 sentences. And that just felt like too much to me, Jay. You're supposed to do like a rhyme, a line, a rhyme, like, you know what I mean? Like not 3 rhyming sentences in a row.
And they're not exactly, they're not like well thought out, clever lyrics.
Yeah.
So work up your appetites. It rhymes with, okay.
We're going to get in the car. We're going to drive to the bar. It's not very far.
So I thought, in the original Planet Adventure, the singer goes with them.
Had a character.
I thought Fergie was going to go with them, and she didn't. I wasn't that disappointed. But it's just, it's weird to have her so prominent in the advertising to have her do nothing on screen. And also,
Black Eyed Peas
have
huge then though.
True.
So
but there is a nightclub section of this film where the kids are, where Kip and Dylan is. Fergie's not singing there. She's singing in the ballroom. I feel like the audience for her singing would probably be in that other area.
That party though, that's why I hate movie parties, because it's way too fun. Everyone's having the time of their lives. There would be so many people White Lotusing and arguing all over the place.
Yep.
That party would never be that great. And also too, as a captain of a boat, Jay, Andre Braugher, come on, I know you don't want chaos, but those windows are gonna break.
He doesn't know that it's not been tested upside down. He could probably assume. But
Josh Lucas, Richard Dreyfuss is like, I'm an architect. It wasn't meant to do this. And then Josh Lucas is like, yeah, this isn't the right.
Navy.
Yeah, this is not the right thing to do. And then the captain of the boat's like, we're just gonna sit here under great pressure, with gigantic windows that can pour in here and take us out.
Yeah. I get if there's going to be some people there who can't get out because they're injured. Mm-hmm. And I get the whole captain going down with the ship kind of thing. Like, I'm staying with my passengers. But you advise the more able-bodied people to try.
Like, listen, guys.
He seems unscathed.
Yeah. You will probably die. You got to get out of here.
Yes. Please understand, everyone, if you stay here, you will perish with me. I have made this choice. You do not need to.
Exactly.
Like, this little Connor cannot be the only child here. Try, get out of it. You said earlier that Petersen, when he made the film, he didn't want people to laugh at it. When the boat turns over and Kurt Russell emerges from underneath 2 dead bodies, I laughed at that. Because he's just hanging out under 2 corpses, just kind of pushes them over. And like, hey, I'm here.
Surprise! Yeah, I gotta get my daughter. Well, that's like the sequel, I guess. Yeah. Doesn't he have Boyle has to get his daughter, right?
I think, yeah, because Michael Caine's gone into salvage with Sally Field and, God, what's his name? It's a good actor, like Carl Malden or something. I just need to try and find who the cast of Beyond the Sun Adventure is. Is it Carl Malden?
No.
Carl Malden, got it right. Well, hey.
Nailed it.
And yeah, so you've got Peter Boyle's trying to find his daughter, Angela Cartwright. And then you've got Slim Pickens. That's the name I was trying to get to. Slim Pickens and Mark Harmon.
Wow.
Stacked cast for Beyond the Fun Adventure. Telly Savalas, Jack Warden, great, wonderful. Victoria Hamill, beautiful film. It's better than this.
Much better. And the one thing though is this movie is 90 minutes. And I remember watching it and I was like, this movie's, I didn't even look how long it was going to be. Like, this movie's probably going to be 2 hours and 20 minutes just because what it is. And then I had to hit pause, and I think I was, I don't know, 58 minutes through, and I saw how much was left. And I went, what? Like, this is amazing. So as much as we're kind of being down on this movie, I don't want to say the best thing about it is that it's short.
I mean, I would agree with that. I could watch this on a weekday night. I went to work, I came home, I watched it.
Yeah, and it's over 90 minutes without credits, and that was a nice surprise. So it once it gets moving very fast, and there is a very simple progression. Just get to the top or the bottom, get to the bottom, but it's the top because it's upside down. So it's easy to follow. It just doesn't have it. It's very lifeless.
Yes. Easy to follow is a good description, because it's just, they were down there, they're trying to get up there, there's problems on the way. That's what they're trying to do.
And it sucks, Jay, because typically when a movie has a very simple plot, you have more time for character. But then this one, there's none. It's a simple plot and no time for character.
I think I've described in the past that the Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides is our most negative episode that you were not on. This might have pipped that one. We tend to be positive on this show, but I think the listeners might know neither of us are at our best at the moment in terms of like tiredness or illness or various things. So we're letting it all out on Poseidon.
But you know what, though? We've thought it through, and we've done research, though. I think episodes are at their worst when they're just like, this movie sucks.
Yeah.
And they haven't read. It's like, I watched the behind the scenes. I read the Wolfgang Petersen interviews. I read the Kurt Russell interviews. Like, Kurt Russell, he said he almost wanted to die in that drowning scene. He was really close to dying. He's like, I want to hold my breath to that point where you think I'm dead and then I come back. And when the guy got him oxygen, Kurt Russell didn't know where he was for 5-10 minutes.
I mean, it is a pretty great sequence when he's doing those convulsions whilst he's dying. It's effective.
Well, apparently he was convulsing.
Yeah.
Because he's like, well, I don't want to get to the point where I'm getting a lot of oxygen in my lungs because then I'm drowned. So he got as close to drowning as possible. Kurt Russell said this. He said, I talked to Wolfgang and said, I'd like to do this sort of what I consider in the bridge of on the bridge over the River Kwai type of thing. You don't know if he dies and then hits this button or if he is in this final dying. I like to sort of put it right in the middle there, but it's going to take time. He's like, yeah, I'd like to do that. That'd be great. So he's like, I have to swim into the room, look for stuff, start it. You have to pass out at first, and you have to pass out before you drowned. He's like, I'm kind of drowning. And then, yeah, he said like he just wanted to. He said that he just wanted to drown. Like he's like, I want to push it as far as possible. And he took this movie before he read the script. He's like, I just did Vanilla Sky without reading the script because I heard was working on it. He's like, I heard Wolfgang was working on this, and I just took it. I don't care about the script. So he didn't care about the script. He said his agent bled everyone dry for money, which kind of makes me happy. But yeah, he almost drowned on purpose to get the realism in that scene. And it looks good. And no, you know what? I do like that moment when he looks at him and goes, thank you. Like he looks at Mike Vogel. He's like, okay, he's a good kid. Like there's a couple good moments in this.
Is that thank you? And then Mike Vogel, like, they saved me. Check yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, I like that. I like that scene though, when there's a couple good moments in this movie, but that's it. So it's, I mean, Kurty-Russ almost drowned himself, which is crazy. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here.
And also, if I was on that Pirates episode, I can't stand that movie. That's one of the most expensive.
It's like the most expensive
pieces of like just a cynical,
art,
boring garbage I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, Nick and I agreed. So that's why I said like Rob Marshall, nemesis of the podcast.
Well, you know what though? This movie though, I'm glad we explored it. We read the interviews, we did the research. I think we understand this movie. So I'm totally fine being negative about a movie when I've learned why I feel negative about it, not just it sucks. So I don't mind being negative as long as it's well-educated negativeness. Negativity.
I don't think people didn't go into this trying to make a bad film.
No.
They just should have had a script. That's the main thing is the lack of script, I guess. Anyway, let's get out of here. So how is Poseidon similar to Deep Blue Sea? I have a list.
No.
Scenes in a kitchen. There's a singer in the cast. They're trapped underwater out at sea. Electrocutions happen. In the ship turning over, there's people get electrocuted. There's explosions. There's people trapped in different areas. There's the elevator shaft with a death at the bottom and a fire in it. They query whether they should open a door. There's a high dive into water. Window cracking to water. Water pours in and floods a room. They're in a room they have to intentionally flood to escape. Which is the kind of the ballast tanks. Dead bodies underwater, a cross necklace, they consult a wall map to see an exit route, climbing up a ladder, opening a door with a wheel, a sacrificial swim, and the biggest star doesn't survive to the end of the film, popping rivets, fireworks, and rescue helicopters. So it's kind of standard stuff, nothing over like, wow, that's in here. It's all just kind of like standard, they're trapped out of water. And how deep and how blue is this film? Mark, do you think, as everyone knows, Deep Blue Sea is on average, where is my spreadsheet? On average, 14.5 meters or 47.5 feet deep, 31% blue. I'll let you know that the original two films, Poseidon Adventure, worked out as being 17.3 and 23.4 feet deep on average, and 11.53, 12.96% blue. Where do you think Poseidon racks up against those?
I was thinking about this, and I mean, they're underwater for a vast majority of the movie, but they're all. I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna say they're 1 meter apart, and I'll give it to Poseidon.
Okay. How about blueness?
Let's see. Who's wearing blue? A lot of water. I'd say it's more blue.
I'm actually going to get to play as well, because right now, I don't know. I haven't had the time to do this. But before this episode goes out, I will have worked out the deep blue, and I'll put it in a minute. But I was thinking the same thing. I think it's going to work out being slightly deeper than the Beyond Poseidon Adventure, but not as deep as Deep Blue Sea. And a little bluer than Poseidon Adventure, but less blue than Deep Blue Sea. But we'll find out when I put that in this episode. Now, Poseidon works out being approximately 3.95 meters deep, or 12.96 feet deep, and about 21.71% blue. That means that Poseidon is shallower than the other two Poseidon films. It works out it's slightly shallower than Piranha 3D, but deeper than Jaws 3D. And it is bluer than Ice Sharks and slightly less blue than Ghost Shark, but bluer than both the other two Poseidon films. There we are. And I hope you found that interesting, how deep and how blue Poseidon is. But that'll do it for Poseidon. Mark, what have you got to plug?
There's MFF and Deep Blue Sea. Yeah, those shows. And hey, listen, thank you to Iceland, Egypt,
yes,
Vietnam, Ghana. We've had a bunch of, where else? Nigeria. We've had a bunch of top tens recently, Jay. So I want to thank everybody who, and also, our Spotify subscribers are improving, and our MFF and our Spotify and iTunes people keep subscribing. So I want to thank y'all. Thank you for doing that.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. You can find this podcast all over social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod, or email us deepblueseapod@gmail.com. Go check out my end of year rankings over at lifeversusfilm.com. And next week we're finally going to have the episode of House Shark. It's been a little bit delayed because the scheduling at the end of the last year got a little bit hectic. But House Shark will be next week with Jason Soto from Rabbit Hole Podcasts. So come back next week for that. But as for Poseidon, I've been Jake Lewis.
And I'm Mark Hoffmeyer.
And we'll Deep Blue see you next week.